So today I decided to do something a little different with my videos. I decided to make a scripted video. So I cracked down, spent a few hours literally trying to make a script, and here I go. So as some of you may have noticed in my earlier videos, I'm a big Doctor Who fan. I have probably more Doctor Who memorabilia than any other show on Earth, including Star Wars. Shocking, I know. However, over the last few years, I've become less and less of a fan as I would want to be. And that's due in part to the current run of the show, which is what I and many others would like to call the political era. First, let me give you a little backstory. I was first introduced to Doctor Who with the Revival series starring Christopher Eccleston, and I've watched every episode since. I've since gone back to the beginning, back to 1963, to the first Doctor played by William Hartnell, and worked my way through the 38 years of history and in a little over 4 months. I've seen the ups, I've seen the downs, I've cried, I've laughed, and I've even resented characters, loved characters, and all that jazz. And through the series, I've never had the impression that any writer, producer, actor, director has disliked or generally hated the show that they were working with. Every actor who has taken on the role has, at least in part, had some sort of tie to the show, has either been a fan of the show beforehand or at least a working knowledge of the show. Even Colin Baker, who's arguably most people's least favourite Doctor, was a big fan of the show before he even got the role. However, when Jodie Whittaker was announced as the 13th Doctor, some fans embraced this with open arms and others were against the idea of a predominantly male character portrayed by a female for the first time ever. Initially, when I found out this information, I was like, I just wanted to wait to see what she does before I passed any judgment, and oh boy do I have judgment. But first, I will be fair, and I will start with the positives. I liked the Daleks. I liked Captain Jack. I kinda liked Grace. Oh boy. Alright, let's dive right into this shit. Shit. Jodie Whittaker fucking sucks as the Doctor. After 2 seasons of her being the Doctor, I still have no idea what her Doctor is meant to be. I have no idea what any of her personality traits are like. She is borderline insufferable. Every time she has an epiphany, every time she finds something out, she's like, she acts like she has a fucking stroke. She puts her hand up to her head and just goes, oh, and it's like, oh god. Most of the time when she's acting, she sounds like she's acting like David Tennant, an over-the-top version of David Tennant's Doctor. Probably because she's good pals with him and worked with him on Broadchurch. It really comes across like Jodie didn't look into anything of the show or anything of the actors who have previously played the Doctor, because none of the Doctor's personality is coming across in her performance. And that's due in part to the writing, but I'm going to get into that later. Even simple things like the Doctor interacting with the Tardis is just completely gone. Remember moments when Matt Smith's Doctor, Peter Capaldi's Doctor, hell, any Doctor would just sit there and they would just have a conversation with the Tardis, basically. Or just sit there and stroke the Tardis. I can really only think of one time in the entire series of Jodie Whittaker's run where she has interacted with the TARDIS, and that was her 2nd episode, and that's really it. Some of the underlying trauma that the Doctor lives with on a daily basis is completely gone. Remember when the Doctor went to war and it became a really big part of his personality and a defining factor in the Doctor's life? Yeah, neither does the show. As I mentioned briefly before, it comes across in Jodie Whittaker's performance that she doesn't really understand the character that she's portraying. And that's because she's literally stated that she did not at all study anything about the show before she even took the role. She's just jumped headfirst into it without any idea of what she's doing or who she's portraying. And like I said before, actors who are commonly regarded as the least favorite of the fandom have at least had a working knowledge of the show before they've even jumped into it. Colin Baker's a great example of it. Peter Capaldi is another example. Some people don't like Peter Capaldi as the Doctor, but they love his acting ability and his genuine love for the show. But if an actress like Jodie Whittaker isn't willing to put in the effort for such an iconic role, then she shouldn't have been cast in the first place. And one of the biggest downgrades of the show right now is the fact that the Tardis is just overcrowded. For reasons known only to Chris Chibnall, they decided to get 3 companions for the Doctor this run. Now, this isn't the first time that they've done that. Past, particularly well back in the first run, William Hartnell had 3 companions. He had his granddaughter, and he had her teachers. 3 companions. But even then, it was still a little overcrowded. There wasn't enough time to grow attached to all of them, and it really shows right now, because I really don't know anything about any of these characters. Most of these characters are forgettable, bland, and boring. And this is due to the fact that the TARDIS is just overcrowded. There's too many of them. There's not enough screen time to devote to any of these actors to develop their character. For example, in the very first episode, Ryan Sinclair, his character was, ironically enough, making a YouTube video. And he never brings it up ever again in the show. It never comes back. It never gets mentioned again. It's just a passing thing that happens once in an episode, twice in an episode. And based on my own personal experience with YouTubers, I can guarantee that most YouTubers would be fans of movies, fans of games, fans of anime, fans of TV shows. He never once talks about his favorite movie. He never once talks about a favorite TV show. He never once talks about any of these things. Not only that, he never once talks about his YouTube channel ever. He never mentions it. It's never something that comes up again in the entire show. Like, he's had 2 seasons. He's now gone now. He's not working in the show anymore, and he's had 2 seasons, and not once did he ever bring up a stupid point about his YouTube channel. Also, another thing about Ryan's character. Apparently, he has dyspraxia. It is never mentioned again. Also, this is something I didn't realize until the last time I watched the show. But in the first episode of Series 12, Ryan can't shoot a basketball. And then in the last episode, he can. Great character development, yo. This is so good. So brilliant. Now, I will say this about one of the characters. Graham is probably the most developed character in the entire show. Graham starts off loving Grace. Like, Grace is his wife. And he's the second wife. He had cancer, and he's had all of that stuff. By the end of the first episode, Grace gets killed, and throughout the series, he's dealing with the fact that he's dealing with that loss. That's great. I love that. Until they stop doing it. Just sort of accepts it, and it's kind of referenced again. Like in Arachnids of the UK, he has a moment where he's dealing with that. He has a moment where he's just contemplating, dealing with it, and it's a really effective scene. I loved it. And there's another episode later on, I can't remember the name of the episode, but Grace comes back, and he gets to say goodbye. And then the very next episode, Tim Shaw, and then Graham out of nowhere is just like, yeah, I'm gonna kill this bitch. And it just feels like it comes out of nowhere. It's one of those things where I was like, if you didn't do that, it would be no different. Or if you had to set it up a little bit more, it would have been better. But at this point, it feels like you've said your goodbyes, you've had your time in the sun, and you've moved on. But now you're just going to crawl all the way back and be like, I'ma kill this bitch because he killed Grace. All of these characters could be awesome if they were given their time, if they had their own time to develop, to see the light of day, to shine out above the rest. But they can't. One of the most appalling instances of this is Yaz. I can't even remember anything that she does throughout the series. She's absolutely useless. The only time I remember her actually doing something is in the New Year's special that just passed, where she shoves the Doctor. That's it. That's the only thing that I remember. See, one of the best things about the Doctor's companions is that they would challenge the Doctor, and they would argue with him when he's about to do something stupid. In an episode like The Day of the Doctor, for example, his companion wouldn't just sit around and accept the circumstance. They would make him question what he's doing. They would make him think before he acted. One of my favorite examples of this is in A Town Called Mercy. When the Doctor is about to sentence a man to death, Amy looks him dead in the eye and says,
"Listen to me, Doctor. We can't be like him. We have to be better than him."
And in just a few words, Amy gets the Doctor to stand down. Amy gets the Doctor to rethink, reassess. But these new companions, these fucking morons, what do? They just sit around. They just agree with the Doctor. Anytime she does something, anytime she goes to do something, they just accept it. They just go, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, that's alright. The only time that I can really think, and I'm stretching here, is when Graham says that I'm gonna kill Tim Shaw. It's the only time, but even then he just sort of goes, yeah, alright, oh, that's alright. Bloody hell, these characters, they fucking kill me. Now, I touched on it a bit before, but the writing for the 13th run makes Colin Baker's era look like a masterclass in terms of writing. Now, Doctor Who is no stranger to cheesy writing, even political stories. But these episodes would usually add to the charm of the show. These episodes would usually go with the show instead of make it worse. My least favourite episode of Series 2 is Love and Monsters. It's easily one of the weakest episodes of the season, but it's still fun to watch. It's still the series. It's still enjoyable to watch. It's fucking weird. It's stupid. But it's fun to watch. Chris Chibnall seems to confuse fun and quirky with dull and boring. Christ, I can't even remember the last time we had a fun episode of Doctor Who. Seriously, I can't remember a good episode. Actually, I can. And it was a nice episode. It was Capaldi's last episode. It was actually a great episode. It was fun, it was quirky, great characters, it had characters I loved, it had moments I loved. Oh man. I miss that. The closest thing that we've had to fun since Chibnall took over is when Captain Jack Harkness was back. But Jack was so wasted in this series, he's a cameo at best. Even when he comes back for the New Year's special, even then he's fucking useless. He's just sitting there. He mentions like some fun things like Rose. He has a couple of fun lines, but he doesn't really do much. He just sort of sits there and then just sort of leaves. Thanks for coming, Jack. Nice to see ya. Now, with these last two seasons, most of the episodes are stuffed full of political messages and shitty subtexts. One of the worst offenders of this is Orphan 55. We are treated to an episode where the Doctor and her fam go on vacation to another planet, only to realize that the area they're in is just a dome and outside is a wasteland. As it turns out, this wasteland is apparently Earth, and the monsters coming after them are a deformed race of humans. At the end of the episode, the Doctor goes back to the Tardis with her fam and gives us a really ham-fisted monologue about how humanity can do better and stop pollution. Ugh. Wow, that was really fucking moving, Jodie. Thanks for that. There's also episodes where they travel to the past and get involved in past events, but with a Doctor Who monster added into the mix to make it more fun and engaging. Great examples of these episodes are The Fires of Pompeii, The Unquite Dead, The Unicorn and the Wasp, and so on. But episodes like these added the monster to the story and made it the focus, but didn't distract from the historical story at hand. Episodes like The Fires of Pompeii interwove the aliens, the Doctor, and the historical figures to make you care about the event. Chris Chibnall seems to think that a racist alien who can't hurt anyone and who does absolutely nothing on the screen is supposed to be interesting. The story about Rosa Parks is a fascinating story, and after watching the episode, it prompted me to look into it. But that was just the point. All the episode does is give you a quick Wikipedia page synopsis of Rosa Parks. And come to think of it, we didn't even really spend that much time with her on screen. And that teaches us nothing about her character. It doesn't teach us anything about her apart from what she did. Until the end of the episode where the Doctor has to exposition dump us with the fucking story just to fill in the blanks. Nice. Would have been nice to watch it. An episode that's pretty similar to this one in terms of story is The Unquite Dead with Charles Dickens. The difference here is we spend the entire episode with Mr. Dickens. We learn about his personality, his imagination, therefore the audience grows an attachment to him. And the ending is truly devastating when we find out that he's going to die soon after the Doctor and Rose inspire him with new ideas and a wider imagination. With Rosa Parks, we don't care, because we don't spend enough time with her. The entire episode is spent with us just figuring it out. That's all we're doing. We're figuring out what this racist alien is doing. we're not spending any time with Rosa Parks. We're not learning anything about Rosa Parks. And it's not in an engaging story either. It's actually quite boring. And because the audience isn't attached to this character, it doesn't give us a satisfying ending. It doesn't give us that moment of hell yeah when the episode ends and Rosa does the thing that she's most famous for. We don't care because we don't know her. We don't really understand. And it just leaves us with a, that's cool. Instead of a, whoa, that's fucked up, man. And finally, this leaves me with the biggest atrocity when it comes to this series. And that is the complete and utter disrespect and disregard for the fandom and the lore of the show. Oy. So earlier in series 12, we are introduced to a new version of the Doctor. Based on the information that we're given, I concluded that she was the Doctor between the first Doctor and the second Doctor, making her the second Doctor. Because in the episode, she didn't know what a sonic screwdriver was, and the sonic screwdriver was first introduced when Patrick Troughton took over as the Doctor. But man, was I in for a big ol' fuck you. As it turns out, the Doctor that we met in episode 5 was one of the Doctor's original lives. See, now, the show wants us to believe that the Doctor wasn't born on Gallifrey, but is actually from an entirely different dimension, and is quite literally the foundation of regeneration itself. Now, if you don't know what regeneration is when the Doctor, or any Time Lord, is dying, and in the process of dying, their body literally reforms them into a different person. That's why there's a new actor or actress to play the Doctor every so often, because the Doctor literally reforms his entire body, his entire cellular structure, to become someone else. Now, in this episode, the Master explains that a greedy lady found this child, experimented on her, and found out the secret of regeneration. And then putting that secret into herself and creating the Time Lords. Now, I'm not inherently against this particular idea, because it's actually pretty fucked up, and I can see it being the origin of the Time Lords. However, it takes so much away from the Doctor. As lore had it, the Doctor was born on Gallifrey, got fed up with the Time Lords, stole the Tardis, and ran away. Purely and simple. It's simple, and it makes the Doctor easily relatable. Yeah, he's an alien, but his rebellious attitude makes him one of the more compelling and one of the more relatable characters that we have on TV. On top of that, he wasn't anything special on Gallifrey either. He's just an average dude. Compared to other Time Lords, he's not a scientist, he's not a military man, he's just a guy. He's just a guy who decided to steal a TARDIS and leave. And that made him especially likable because he's just your average bloke that just decided to be rebellious, steal a TARDIS, and leave. What person hasn't had that particular motivation to just jump in their car and leave? But with this revelation, it changes all of that. It changes the Doctor from an average Joe to a fucking god, which changes the Doctor from being completely relatable to completely unrelatable. And it fucks the established lore that has already been set up. Now fans are being told to fuck off and deal with it because fuck ya. In the end, Doctor Who, at this point, is just a complete joke. It mocks the legacy of the 57 years of the love and respect that have been put into the show. But it doesn't have to be like that. There are simple fixes that would make the show better. For a start, give the actors and the characters time to develop. Give more screen time to the Doctor. Let her be a character. Let her be interesting. Let Yaz be interesting. And this new language. I don't know what his name is, but give him time as well. Like, 2 companions isn't bad. The Doctor, Amy, Rory, they've had more than 1 companion, but 3 companions is too much. Give enough time to each companion. Give enough time to the Doctor herself to develop. But that's all I've got for today. Come back next time. And if you like what you see here, click the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I'll see you then.